Hi, everybody. Hello. I'm Thom, and it's been years since this coronavirus disruption started. I've been taking this time to eat beef jerky and talk to you on the internet. I'm not an expert or a food critic, I just like beef jerky. But this vlog has been good fun, and it's letting me explore some fun ideas with you, especially regarding game design, which is my particular forte. Today I'm going to feature some quality beef jerky given to me by my good friends Darren and Neela. Today is September 7th. Where did the year go? September 7th, 2023. Time catches up with us all, but seems to move faster and faster every year. But I didn't want to talk about time, except in the sense that how things are changing in the video game industry. I wanted to talk about the hot new games of 2023. Not really, because the truth is that more games come out every year, big and small. I just wanted to share with you some numbers on the really, really big games that have come out so far this year. And of course, there's still a third of the year to go. But yeah, these big games get bigger in every way all the time. Starfield, brand new space game, 2 million players played it during the early access period. That was a period reserved exclusively for the people who purchased the super pricey premium and Constellation editions of the game. Bethesda says Starfield recently exceeded 1 million concurrent players across all platforms. That's 1 million players playing all at the same time, all around the world. There's another game out there, Diablo 4 came out, big game. In its first month of sales, more than 10 million people spent more than 700 million hours playing the game. Just, wow. 10 million people playing that game. Then there's a report from Bloomberg that says the new Baldur's Gate 3 game that came out sold over 2.5 million units during its early access period. That's before it finally came out. Recently when it came out in its finished 1.0 version. And there's a report that says that Larian Studios, the company that made Baldur's Gate, has since sold a total of 5.2 million copies just on the Steam platform as of August 16th. So all these are huge games that took hundreds of people and multiple years to make. All of these are from big studios. All of these are from studios that have lots of experience making these kinds of games. All of these games can keep you playing for hundreds of hours, essentially forever if you want. If you get stuck on this game, you never have to let go. Whichever one of these games you want to play, the game simply offers you infinite play, more or less. Obviously, I think that's astounding from a, old man back in my day kind of point of view. But I think it's also fascinating because the entire time I spent in the video game industry, it was a high risk, high reward industry. And there's not really any indication to me that that's changed. The idea being that, every time a company makes a game, it spends more money making that game, and it takes on bigger risks making that game. And if you make one game that doesn't sell well, suddenly the financial house of cards comes crashing down, and the whole company goes out of business and laid off. And that is still happening today. There were actually some very recent big video game industry layoffs. But you would think that since for decades, for a very long time, people have realized that that is a high risk, high reward situation, not like, say, an auto dealership or a supermarket or something like this, that investors would have a really hard time investing, not just in these companies, but investing in the really long-term, long years, big expectations, big team work that we see in Starfield, in Baldur's Gate, in the latest Zelda game, and Diablo. You would think investors would have a problem with that much risk over that period of time for such a risky business. Which ties into what I've been feeling for a very long time was that, a very long time, I mean years now, is that we're in a situation where there's a lot of risk, but there's a whole lot of money out there too. There's, the truth is that the world economy hasn't stopped growing bigger and bigger. And the people at the top, frankly, are taking bigger and bigger slices of the pie. And there's so much pie that, it's become almost a game among the ultra wealthy how fast they can get rid of their money. Not necessarily throw it away, but how much they can invest. They're always looking, the Saudis throw billions at projects without a blink. And they're certainly not the only ultra wealthy actors in the world. What I'm saying is that I believe these companies are being able to make these products the way they are, despite it being a really risky proposition to hire 500 people and work them for 6 years on a video game, precisely because there is so much speculative money in the world, not just in the video game industry, but in the world right now. That's my best guess as to how this risky money keeps getting spent, despite the fact that, again, way back in the 80s, people who were making video games were identifying and going, whoa, this is a crazy business. One bad move and you can lose the whole thing. It's bad, and I've certainly talked with, and I've certainly read about plenty of people who left the video game industry precisely for that. They were like, I did this business, and we had these hits, and then I knew that one more bad game sales event, and I would lose my shirt, so I just folded my company, or I walked away. And I think I've talked before about how there's a churn, and video game companies do fall by the wayside and close shop all the time. There is a cycle. Individual video game studios often are not expected to survive forever. But it's often the case in the case of a studio that a studio gets bought by a bigger company, and that studio gets run dry, it gets mismanaged, and eventually it's closed. Story of that I've experienced multiple times myself directly in the video game industry. But I'm, that's a different thing. That's a bigger company managing its risk, not doing the all-in big, oh boy, go big or go home kind of situation, which is what we've been seeing the fruits of here in 2023. We just see big titles, and we're not done. There are other big titles, I think, on the way. But it's been a very long time since we've been in a situation where anyone could play all the video games. I mean, there's just too much video game to ever play, no matter how long you lived. But that in itself is not actually all that speculatable, because you could also say that about almost any other kind of art. You could say, I don't have enough time in the world to listen to all the music that's ever been made. I don't have time in the world to read every book that's ever been made, or see every play that's ever been put on. So that's, but these really big titles that have really hit bigger than ever, that were big risk, that took a lot of money and a lot of time to do, even if the studio who was doing them was very professional and knew what they were doing and had done the work, done that kind of game before. It's still noticeable to me because of my own experience in the industry. Again, I think it's just because there's just a lot of money in the world, and we all wish we could get another piece of it. All right, speaking of getting pieces of things, my good friends Darren and Neela have given me Rafter G Jalapeno Peach Flavored Beef Jerky. What an adventure. All right. So I'm going to get the jerky. I'm cracking it open. And I'm going to eat some. So So, hey, look at that. Got a piece right here. Open bag. Smells like jerky. Alright. Got a nice sized piece here. Jalapeno peach. Starting to feel the heat. Yeah. Kicking in. I really can't taste the peach. I mean, it's a little bit sweeter, maybe. Maybe that's what the peach brings to the table, is the sweetness. But definitely I'm being overwhelmed by the jalapeno heat. I wouldn't say it's the worst I've ever tasted. And you know me, I don't particularly like the heat. But, yeah. The jerky I had in the last video, which was also from Rafter G, that was a hot jerky, but I thought that heat was a little more refined, a little bit more gentlemanly. Took its time coming in and wasn't all that. This jalapeno is full-throated heat. Full-throated jalapeno energy. Ooh, so, let's see here. As usual, this is not a one-way street. I really appreciate your comments, you liking and subscribing and hitting the bell like every YouTuber asks you for these days. But I really appreciate you being here and watching me sweat over some jalapeno peach jerky. So, and speaking of replies, let's look at replies from the last video I did. Episode 64, Adam Para spoke up and supported me on my Cosmos work. That's great. Adam, we're doing cool new things with Cosmos. We actually brought the engineering coolant dots back. We had taken them out. Nobody liked it. Everybody wanted the coolant dots back, so I've just put them back in. So, and we're doing a lot more work besides. And Adam also, agreed with what we were talking about last week, was those incredibly expensive racing controllers that I made mention of. And he wondered who's dropping that kind of money. Well, I mean, the only people who can are the video game aficionados, the people who really want to play the most realistic video game they can without actually getting behind the wheel of an actual car. So I'm kind of tempted to say, oh, there's, obviously American economy must be in a great shape if people can blow their money so frivolously. But that's not necessarily true. That was the great truth is that people always seek out their avocations. People always want to find fun, and many of them find fun in the weirdest and sometimes most expensive places. And that's independent of how any particular economy is doing at any particular time. Hobbies happen. Hobbies are human. Hobbies are fundamentally human, just like pets are fundamentally human. We all need pets. We all need hobbies. We all understand that. So, having said that, I really appreciate you being here. Yeah, I was a little worried that jalapeno in the jalapeno peach would render me speechless, but a little bit of soda headed off the worst of it. I would say this is very hot and a bit sweet jerky, and that's a good thing. I mean, for people who like that kind of thing, I mean, I would say if you like your heat, this is not too much, and it's not dialed back. It's the good stuff in terms of heat. And it's also sweet and tasty otherwise. So, for you jerky lovers who love the heat, I can fully recommend Rafter G Jalapeno Peach. I'm not such a big fan of the heat, but I appreciate good jerky when I taste it. Even if it wasn't designed for me. So, thanks again for watching. Tune in next time